It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, May 10th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is really thinking Travis Sanheim stepped up this season.
I'll think about that.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post in Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. You can find our show over on YouTube. We're on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, before we dig into Travis Sanheim's season that was, Sam Ersson is playing for Team Sweden at Men's Worlds, and that's really cool. I think it's really fun that game one for Sweden is versus Team USA against Joel Farabee there. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's nice for those guys. Their hockey season gets elongated, for Urson. It's nicer for him to get the nod. Farabee's been in a lot of stuff with the U.S., but I suspect Urson, has been passed over more than a few times. So it's nice.
Yeah, we'll keep track of that and talk about it more next week as the tournament progresses. The Lehigh Valley Phantoms won Game 3 to continue this series. They did so in pretty decisive fashion. 2-0 shutout. Cal Peterson, really solid performance in net with 22 saves. I think that, there are two main things about this game that I think led to the win. Number one, they went back to the 12-6, which we
Oh, you don't say.
talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really interesting because Lappy talked specifically about in the previous game with all the penalties, those extra two forwards didn't really get any ice time.
No, that's what we were saying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He took our advice to heed, we would like to think, and went with the 12-6. And I think the other main thing is that the top guys did step up and they did so on the power play. Both goals were power play goals.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And the guys are going to have to do it again. But at least doing 12-6 gives them a puncher's chance. And, the forwards get more ice time. And that's good. I mean, they deserve it. It can't all be about the defense. You got to try and dole it out equally. So, yeah, I mean, they're still in the series. That's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. They were 2 for 3 on the power play, by the way. The goals were from Emil Andre, a great shot from the point. Lixel had a little bit of luck, but Cooper Marody made a really nice play, and Lixel got the benefit
Okay.
of that one. I think that, they still need to stay out of the box. The Bears had 5 power play opportunities.
Yeah.
But the Phantoms were 5 for 5 on the kill, and I have to say, you look at the shots on goal in this game, the Phantoms, and we said this about game 1 as well, they did such a good job of shutting down Hershey. I believe there was one of those power plays where Hershey got 0 shots on goal.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all in all, a really good performance overall by the team. Hopefully, they can continue that into game 4, which is on Saturday. Game 5, if necessary, which we hope is necessary, is on Sunday. So, we'll be back next week to talk about how that played out. I want to turn our attention to, one might say, the Flyers' top defenseman of this past season in Travis Sanheim. And, earlier this week, we talked about Joel Farabee. And the reason why we're kind of pairing Farabee and Sanheim this week in our player profiles is there was a lot of discussion about both of these guys and did they have a good season or not? Because you look at their numbers and it seems clear that they did, but people are making arguments that they didn't. And I felt there was like a similar thematic bent to discussing these two guys. And with Travis Sanheim, if we recall last offseason, there were people were big mad about Travis
Oh yeah,
Sanheim.
yeah.
And, he got benched. It was a pretty terrible year for him overall at that.
Yeah, there's no doubt he took it to heart. I felt like his training got better. He definitely got stronger. I think now he understands the responsibilities better. Now, listen, he's never going to turn into like a great power play guy. That was just a hope when he was drafted that he'd be that too. But, he's got two of the three things down really well. And so, yeah, this was a good year for him. I do think he can do better defensively. But again, he's going up against the best in the league now. So that may, it's still going to be an adjustment.
Yeah, I think that's the big factor for me here. So he had the most minutes of anybody on the Flyers playing in 81 games. So he had one less game, still had the most minutes
Yeah, it's
of
pretty
of
impressive that way.
yeah, so even Cam York had 82 games and played fewer minutes than Travis Sanheim did, and they were, you know, most often paired together and on the ice at
Right.
the same time. So that says a lot there. Sanheim had 39.2% share of possible ice time per money puck. That is a lot.
It's a lot of responsibility, but they paid him well, they extended him, and now he's jumped up in class, and so this is part of it.
Yeah, so he led scoring for defensemen on the Flyers with a career high 44 points, which I think, a lot of people are underplaying that aspect of his game this season, that they're talking more about what he did or didn't do on the power play or he did or didn't do defensively. And when you're a 1D on a team where he's not really a top defenseman in the
No.
NHL, but he had to take on this role, to your point, of facing the top competition in the league to get a career high in points, I think is a pretty remarkable
No, that's
accomplishment.
good. I mean, that's what you want. Yes, I mean, he didn't have 80 points like Quinn Hughes. I get it. And he's never gonna. So,
Right.
but I think for some reason people are looking for him to have like 65 points, or be Drew Doughty, and he's not going to do that. But he has gotten better. He's taken on the responsibility. He's been a leader in that regard, and yeah, I think he's really stepped up.
So, like, what is your take in terms of him taking on that 1D role when he's not ideally one? Like, how did he handle it, in your opinion?
Yeah, I felt like he handled it mostly well. I think the mental part was good. I think he did find himself out of position more than a few times, but it's going to happen, and I think that's the part he could improve on. But with the extra strength, I felt like his skating got better, like his speed burst,
Hmm.
and definitely you could see that he was more willing to sort of rough it up in the corners than he had been in the past. And so I felt like those parts of his game rose. So if he could just do a little better as far as playing the angles and that part of his game, I think you've got a 1D replacement. That's what you got. It's not a 1D, but a guy who could do it.
Yeah, I think, one of the other aspects of his game that's related to how the Flyers play defense is, we look at block shots, right?
Right.
And, his number of block shots went up from last season in the same number of games. He threw a lot more hits
Yeah.
this year than he did last year. And that, to your point of him building up a lot more strength in the off season,
Yeah,
I
he was
think,
feeling that. You could tell.
yeah, I think that was a huge addition to his game this past season in terms of his willingness and ability to throw hits. I think, especially in the offensive zone, I would say, in terms of trying to maintain possession, extend, Flyers' opportunities in the offensive zone. I think that's where, at least I noticed, a big portion of his game improved this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it did improve there. And and so like his takeaways were better, but his giveaways were up too. Like
Right.
that's
Right.
all part of getting more ice time and
Yep.
taking on that role. So next year now we would expect those two numbers to go better in the other direction. Takeaways go up, giveaways go down. We'll see. The plus minus was partially indicative of the responsibility of taking on top players and partially because of the team too at times. So, and he's not going to get a lot of power play time to erase some of that plus minus stuff. So I don't look at it too heavy.
Yeah, so we're going to look more at his play relative to the other Flyers defensemen, as well as that power play situation, and more on what he can improve on next season coming up next.
We all know how important life insurance is, but it can be overwhelming trying to find the right policy on your own. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find the life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year of $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. I know it feels so much better to have insurance and not to have to worry about my family being covered. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it may not come with you when you leave your job. And Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from an unlicensed expert support team. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click on the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl.
Next week on the show, we of course are going to wrap up the Phantoms season, or see what happened with the series, I guess, this past weekend. See if their season is moving on and get into more player profiles, look more toward the draft. So much great stuff coming on the show next week. If there is a player from this past season on the Flyers you want us to dig into, like we are with Travis Sanheim right now, let us know. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail. You can let us know on Twitter, or you can comment on our YouTube channel. Russ, Travis Sanheim obviously spent most of his season paired with Cam York, and we think that was the natural pairing here for them. But interestingly, if you look at some of the other situations that Sanheim was in, obviously huge minute drop off. So we're talking
Yeah.
like 800 minutes with York down to like 150 minutes with Drysdale and Zamula, who were like the next closest
Right.
in terms of minutes. So you have to take all of this with a little grain of salt given the limited minutes. But his best Corsi for percentage and expected goals for percentage was with Drysdale and Zamula over with York. And I'm wondering if that is because Drysdale and Zamula are a little bit more mentally offensively oriented than York is right now, or like was Sanheim trying to mentor and carry York in a way that limited some of that?
I don't think it's either. I think what it is uh, Cam is good when he's in the offensive zone. When he's in the offensive zone, he's really good. Sometimes getting there, not as quite as good as what he was in juniors. And we've seen Zamula is one of the safest guys in the Flyers to get the puck up the ice and get in the offensive zone. And then Drysdale does that pretty easily too. So I just think those two
Yeah.
are better at it than York at that aspect of things.
Right, and so Sanheim is having to carry the burden of that
Yeah.
role. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, in terms of why that stat would be that way.
Yes.
As far as, Travis Sanheim's shot blocking, he, had more blocked shots, but was still in the bottom half of Flyers defensemen, only Zamula and Drysdale. Again, we just talked about they're more offensively oriented guys, right? So they
Right.
had fewer blocks per 60 in the season than Sanheim, but everybody else had more.
Well, I mean, your number one defenseman shouldn't be your leader in blocks anyhow. That's just the way it is. He's too important for the other things he has to do, the amount of minutes. That's why you give it to someone like Sealer who plays fewer minutes, but still, yeah, he goes out there and he blocks a lot of key shots. A 1D, they're not supposed to do that. Eric Carlson would block a shot if he had to, as an example, but that wasn't
Right.
his role.
Right. I just think like it isn't the role of what it should be, but in John Tortorella's system, everybody's required to block shots. So I think
To
it
some
is.
degree, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it is like interesting where in the continuum of Flyers defensemen he wound up in the block shot rates for the team.
Yeah, I think it's also a matter of he's in playing in different circumstances in the game. So there are circumstances where we've talked about maybe, it's not the greatest idea to start blocking a lot of shots. And so I think he plays a lot of that in that time frame in that for that.
Yeah, we talked a lot over the course of the season in terms of his ice time that he was being way overused early in the
Yes.
season. And the team did recognize that and tried to figure out a way to balance it more. So that was a good thing that happened over the season is that they tried to not overburden Travis Sanheim.
Yeah, they did it for him. They didn't really do it for Couturier.
Well, you know, our needs are few here, but
Right.
I think what doing that did for Sanheim, in my opinion, was allowed him to focus a little bit more on the offensive side of his game without being gassed the whole time.
Right.
And
And that's the whole thing. If you want to get the best of a player, you can't be mentally and physically gassed. You're not going to get the best of the player then.
yeah, so if you look at just the number of high danger chances for by the Flyers defenseman, Sanheim had the most by a mile. He had 38 high
Yeah.
danger chances over the course of the season. 8 of them were on the rush. So it's good to see that, for a team that got a large chunk of their scoring chances overall on the rush, to see that Sanheim got really high danger opportunities not on the rush more often, I think is a really good sign for Sanheim,
It,
particularly.
it is a good sign. And I think you'll even see more improvement on that next year. He'll build on
I
that.
think I think so too. Speaking of next year, so you've talked a little bit about, better in the D zone, working defensively. Like, is there any better usage that could lead to that, or is this just something he needs to work on?
The only usage that could lead to that, in my estimation, is if Drysdale can be the two. If they trust him and he does a good job, then Cam York can go back to being a second pairing guy, which he's better at. And then I think overall, everybody's better off. So I think that's the way.
Yes. So, what does having Drysdale as a partner as opposed to York do for Sanheim's game?
Well, like Sanheim is an offensive defenseman, but it's not his first true instincts, where for Drysdale it
Yeah.
is. So now he could split some of that instead of taking it all on his shoulders, like, hey, because as we saw, York, he got a few goals. He had like probably 7 or so, but he got 2 or 3 of them in close. And Sanheim, I felt like really at times was trying to make things happen, as they say. If you got Drysdale working with you,
Yeah.
you don't have to do that as much.
Right. And so you look at his stats, where, 2 years ago, where he had a pretty solid season. He was only 25 then, 24 assists. The next year, disaster, as we talked about. But this past season, he had 34 assists. And I think, given the right partnering in the right system, like, I think he could probably jump that up to 45 assists in
Yeah,
a
I think he
season.
can too. I think you're right about that. Goals wise, I think, anywhere in double digits, that's good.
Right. Yeah, I'm not expecting huge goal scoring out of him, but I think
No.
he can add to the playmaking ability. Well, plus if they got a power play system that worked to his advantage, maybe that would help with the
No.
assist as well. But I'm just trying to think, like, in the big picture, I do think he could get to that 45 assist mark.
Yeah, I think he can, and I think that's something that he should shoot for.
The other big picture thing for Sanheim is obviously he's the number one D man for now, but how long is for now? Like, how long will the Flyers need him to play that role?
And it's indefinite. There's nobody in their system that's going to take that role. So, and
Yeah.
Bonk's not going to either. So let's say that player comes in this draft. Still gonna, I know people want to always take that short end and say, well, 2 or 3 years. No, it'll be 3 to 5. So at least 3 minimum, 5 maximum.
Right. And that's why I think it's so important to manage Sanheim's time effectively, because I think that you can't overplay him in this role, in a role that he shouldn't be in, but he's going to have to do for 3 to 4 years, maybe 5.
Right. I mean, look, I know fans will be on the other end and say, well, Flyers said they're looking for a number one D. So are a lot of teams. And the last time the Flyers were looking for a number one D, ended up getting someone older like Pronger. And for a couple of years was good. And then all of a sudden, Chris Pronger had Chris Pronger problems, which sucked. Right. Um,
Right.
that's the only kind of 1D you're getting. You know, if you got, let's say, Drew Doughty in a trade, just as an example, he's already had a huge career. You know, how many more years would you get Drew Doughty playing? So that's why they probably just
One
let
and a
San
half,
right,
maybe.
right. So that's why you probably just let Sanheim do it at this point. It's cost certainty. You already know what you're paying them.
Yep, exactly. I think that is the right move. I think, it's also interesting looking at Sanheim's career. He's 27, will be turning 28 into next season. That's starting to venture on veteran territory here, which is wild to
Yeah.
think about for Travis Sanheim.
Yeah, I look at Sanheim and I do remember when Ron Hextall called him that rangy young defenseman, and now he's less rangy, and he's much better.
Yeah, I think so. I think, relative to expectation, he has progressed really nicely in terms of what we saw him as a draftee versus what he is now.
Correct.
I think he's done really well for himself, and being that age, he's going to start having to mentor the young kids, and
Yep.
I think he's ready for it.
No, I think he is too, mentally, physically, definitely.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that aspect of his game and his leadership on the team. Speaking of the rest of the team, we had our weekly poll question about re-signing guys and who that might be in the upcoming offseason or next season before their contracts expire. We're going to talk about those poll results coming up next. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place easy because it gets you one step closer to the hire by immediately matching you with quality candidates. Even better, Indeed's only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must have requirements. Join the more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at indeed.com/locked on. Offer good for limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So our poll question this week was a fun one. We saw the Flyers extend Owen Tippett and Ryan Poehling during the season this past year. Who are the Flyers most likely to extend before the end of next season when their contracts expire? We said that the options were Tyson Forrester, Noah Cates, Travis Konechny, Cam York, and Morgan Frost. And the winner, but not, I would say, overwhelmingly so, was Travis Konechny at 35%. So he got less than half of the votes, but the most
Yeah.
votes overall.
And I think they're right about that. Uh, Term is going to be the key here. I would not
Yeah.
give him 8 years. Nothing close to that.
Yeah. Do you think they'll have to give him 8 years to keep him, though?
Okay, so then we're going to get into this philosophical thing with the Flyers. Well, we had to give them the 8 years to keep the AAV down. Stop doing that. If you have to pay more on the AAV, the cap's going to go up. Stop giving out term. Term is a killer. That's it. That's my TED talk.
Okay. I think that's a good TED talk, and I like them short. Anyway, yeah, those were, the main comments were about TK here, and that everybody wants him to stay with the Flyers, but they understand he's the biggest bargaining chip here
Yes.
that they have in terms of a trade. And I can see the difficulty in what the Flyers face with this decision. But ultimately, I just think Travis Konechny is such a part of the heart of this team that if you trade him away, I think the team loses something with the cohesiveness of the team.
They do, but farcical trade here. But like if you traded Konechny for Chikrin and Chikrin says, "Yeah, I'll sign with the Flyers," um, that's not bad. Then that's okay because they both have the same amount of years left in the deal. You're still going to have to extend either one of them, and then Chikrin maybe could be your 1D, and then everybody else gets pushed down. And then maybe then you don't have to go out picking up these other kind of lesser guys and start playing some of the younger guys. That may be, connect these from the Ottawa 67s. Maybe they would do something like that. But other than that, he's probably staying.
Yeah, I think so. The next two were only 1% off in difference between each other. So we had Cam York at 29% and Tyson Forster at 28%. Now, my pick would have been Tyson Forster because I think it's an easier contract to negotiate than Travis Konechny at this point. And so if I had to say who would they re-sign first, it's going to be him. But I don't know. I think that it'll really depend on how he does, say, the first half of next season. I don't think this is an early contract extension. I think it's maybe all-star breaky time, or there isn't an all-star game next year, but about that time when they would do the extension.
Yeah, I think it has to be York because you've got to try and get, at least your top three locked up. Like that's it. And then when the other three come in, like the ones that are ready now, you let them play the other three. And then when the bonks or whatever come in, then you see how the other guys are doing and you work that accordingly, right? So I think you got to lock up the defense first, honestly.
I think you might be right philosophically. I'm just saying from an ease of negotiation.
Yeah, no, you're right. That it's a much easier
Yeah.
deal. But you're right. He
Yeah.
still has to prove a little more.
That's how I feel about it. But I think you're absolutely right about Cam York. I think this is a good time for the Flyers side of things to negotiate with Cam York and get
Yes.
the right kind of deal. So I look forward to seeing what they can do there because I think having him at a reasonable rate is a really good thing for the Flyers moving forward.
Yeah. The thing that on that list that made me sad, people didn't pick Morgan Frost for 8% because that's what they think of him. They just feel like he's gone.
Right.
And that sucks. Now, Noah Cates, unfortunately, I think got picked at the 1% because that's what they think of him. But I think he could have a better year next year. But I think he got to use his usage has to be different.
Right. And that also makes me sad about Morgan Frost because I completely agree with you about the reasoning.
It's just
here.
apathy. It's apathy.
Yeah, we're just like tired of seeing him get put through the ringer and
Yeah.
not appreciated for what he does well. And I think that, coach gave him a real rough go of it. And so the chances of him getting extended are pretty low. I think overall, I mean, we'll see if he gets traded this offseason. I think
Yeah.
that'll be,
He'll be in talks. Whether he gets traded,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, whether it happens, around the draft or, at some other point. I think if he does get traded, it'll be something draft related,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But yeah, I would like to see them re-sign him, but it is looking
Yeah,
dire
same here.
in
It is
that
looking dire.
in that aspect of things. But yeah, really good response from y'all. Looking forward to another good poll question coming up next week. So listen for that on the Monday show and then let us know what you think. We will be back with that poll question, with the nemesis of the week, with a Phantoms update on Monday, and then so much more next week. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send in your mailbag questions or prospect suggestions or Flyers recap suggestions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league like Locked On NHL. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great weekend, everyone.